In the last lecture, we saw how the restrictions on the parameters of an equation help us to identify that equation. In particular, we saw the order and the rank conditions which helped us to identify these equations. Now, the type of restrictions that we have, or the type of restrictions that we looked at in the last lecture, were a particular type, in the sense that they are supposed to be homogeneous equations. But very often the restrictions can be of several other types, and in some of these restriction types the order and the rank condition cannot be checked. So, we need to find some other way of checking for the identifiability of an equation. So, in this lecture we will be talking about a different approach to check the identifiability of an equation. We will also look at a few examples using the new approach that we are going to look at. An equation can have several types of restrictions. What we have already looked at are what are referred to as exclusion restrictions. What are exclusion restrictions? In this case, a particular variable is missing, but then, as we said, we are not looking at variables missing, we are putting this in terms of the parameters. So, particular variable is missing means that the variable has a 0 coefficient in that equation. These sort of exclusion restrictions are the ones that we had looked at in the first 4 examples we did in the last lecture. A more general homogeneous restriction would be of the form alpha j prime phi j equal to 0, and we looked at the 5th example we did the last day, where there were a relationship between two parameters, and we saw that we can often put this relationship into the form alpha j prime phi j equal to 0. But there are sometimes inhomogeneous restrictions, that is, the restrictions does not tell us that or the relationship between the parameters is such that it is not equal to 0. We can even have cross equation restrictions, that is, there are restrictions where the parameters involved are coming from two different equations. We can even have restrictions on the variance covariance matrix. So, there can be different types of restrictions. Let us look at them one by one. Of course, we have looked at the homogeneous equations and we are not going to go back to them. Let us look at a 6th example. If you remember what we did in the last lecture, we had 3 endogenous and 2 exogenous variables, and we had been looking at the number of restrictions on the first equations which identifies the first equation. Continuing with this, now let us have beta 1 3 equal to 0. This is the usual type of exclusion restriction that we have been using. But suppose in addition we have gamma 1 1 plus gamma 1 2 is equal to 2. Now, we have two restrictions. So, you know that the order condition would be satisfied, because in this case r should be equal to or greater than g minus 1, which is 3 minus 1 is 2. So, we already have two restrictions. But then how do I put the second condition gamma 1 1 plus gamma 1 2 equal to 2 into the alpha prime phi j form? To do that, note that beta 1 1 is equal to 1. So, we can express the restriction as gamma 1 1 plus gamma 1 2 minus twice beta 1 1 is equal to 0. So, beta 1 1 is equal to 1 really means that gamma 1 1 plus gamma 1 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. So, what we have done is that we have put the restriction again into the homogeneous form. So, we began with an inhomogeneous restriction, but we can always transform this to a homogeneous form, and then construct our phi 1 with the first column corresponding to beta 1 3 equal to 0 is as usual as before, it is 0 0 1 0 0, and the second column now is minus 2 0 0 1 1. So, multiplied with alpha 1, this gives us minus 2 beta 1 1 plus gamma 1 1 plus gamma 1 2 equal to 0. And we can similarly get A phi 1, which is again a 2 column matrix. It has 3 rows, the first row is always going to be 0 as before, and we can check for the rank and the order condition. Of course, the order condition is satisfied, and A phi 1 tells us the rank of this matrix is going to be 2, and hence this equation is identified. So, inhomogeneous restrictions can be in most cases transformed into homogeneous restrictions, and hence the homogeneous restriction techniques can work in this case as well. Let us look at some other ways of identifying equations, because the next two type of restrictions, the cross equation restrictions and the various restrictions, cannot be worked out using the rank conditions. A more general approach to check identification would be to use a slightly different technique. So, let us look at the model By plus gamma x is equal to u. Let us call this the first model 1. Now, the assumptions that we have on this model is expectation of u equal to 0 and dispersion of u equal to sigma. Let F be any G by G non-singular matrix. We pre-multiply the model 1 by F. So, we have F by plus F gamma x is equal to F u, and we rewrite this as B star y plus gamma star x equal to u star, where B star is of course F b, gamma star is F gamma, and u star is F u. So, we have a second model just by taking a non-singular, by making a non-singular pre-multiplication of the original model. Now, if you look at expectation values, so expectation of u is equal to 0 implies that expectation of u star is equal to 0. Similarly, dispersion of u equal to sigma implies that dispersion of u star is f sigma f prime, and we will call this sigma star. So, now we have a different setup. In this case, we have B star y plus gamma star x is equal to u star with expectation 0 and dispersion sigma star. Now, if you look at the reduced forms, from 1 we have the reduced form pi is equal to minus B inverse gamma. From 2 we have the reduced form as pi star equal to minus B star inverse gamma star. But then B star is Bf, so we can substitute this with B inverse F inverse, and gamma star is F gamma. Therefore, if we write this, it actually turns out to be minus B inverse gamma, because F and F inverse actually cancel off, and it reduces to pi. So, pi star is equal to pi. What is the implication of this? The implication of this is that if we regress y on x, that is what we do in the reduced form. So, we regress y on x to get pi from the reduced form. If we do that, then the question would be, are we estimating pi or are we estimating pi star? If we are estimating pi, we can go back to B and gamma. If we are estimating pi star, then we will have B star and gamma star, which is a non-singular transformation of B and gamma. So, we are not sure as to what we are estimating. The same stands for sigma and sigma star. So, are we estimating sigma or are we going to estimate sigma star? This is what the problem of identification is. As we have seen in previous classes, we have a confusion as to what exactly we are estimating. We say that 1 and 2, these two equations are observationally equivalent. That means if we try and estimate the parameters from the given set of data, then the estimates would come out to be same. So, we are not very sure as to what the parameters would be, B or FB, gamma or F gamma. Now, looking at admissibility here, we say that the matrix F is admissible if the second set of equations satisfies the same a priori conditions as the first set. So, we have some restrictions on the original structural form, that is 1. Now, we pre-multiplied it by F to get 2. So, what we require for admissibility is that the same set of conditions that we had for 1 should also work for 2. And then we can think in terms of identification as a system of equations is identified if the only admissible F is a diagonal matrix. So, there has to be only the diagonal matrix, which when pre-multiplying this A matrix, if this turns out to be a diagonal, we will say that the system of equations 1 is identified. So, multiplying A by a diagonal matrix, what does it mean for the jth equation or for the jth row? It means that you multiply the jth row by it becomes a scalar multiple of the unit vector. So, if the jth row of F is a scalar multiple of the unit vector, we say that the jth equation is identified. If it happens for all the rows, then obviously all the equations would be identified, and we will say that the system is identified, and it will actually turn out that F is a diagonal matrix. Now, if we use the normalizing conditions that beta jj equal to 1, then the system is identified if the only admissible F is the identity matrix. So, basically norming the equations would also norm F, and instead of talking about F being diagonal, we can take the extreme case of F being the identity matrix itself. Now, let us have another view of what we are trying to look at. Remember that given our restrictions, alpha j prime phi j is equal to 0. Now, since alpha j can be written as alpha j prime is equal to E j prime A, E j mind you is the unit vector. So, what does E j do? E j picks up the jth elements. So, it picks up the jth row of A, and that is precisely what alpha j is. So, if we use instead of alpha j E j prime A, then the condition alpha j prime phi j equal to 0 becomes E j prime A phi j is equal to 0. Now, remember, for F to be admissible, F A must satisfy the same a priori restrictions as A. So, what are the restrictions we have on A? Alpha j prime phi j is equal to 0. Let F j be the jth row of F. So, F j must satisfy the same conditions. F j prime A phi j must be equal to 0. But for identification, rank of A phi j is equal to G minus 1. What does that mean? That means that, mind you, A phi j is G minus 1 ordered. So, in fact, it has order G, and if I pre-multiply this by any vector, there can be at most one orthogonal vector. But we have seen that A phi j pre-multiplied by E j actually gives us 0. So, E j prime is orthogonal to it. A phi j multiplied by F pre-multiplied by F j gives us 0. So, F j must also be orthogonal to it, but there can be, as the rank says, there can be only one orthogonal vector for A phi j. So, in that case, obviously F j must be some scalar multiple of E j, and that is what we had been looking at previously from a different angle, so that the jth equation is identified if the jth row is a scalar multiplication of the unit vector. Let's look at a few examples where we can use this technique. In this case, we will be taking g equal to 2 and k equal to 2 also. So, we have two endogenous variables and two exogenous variables, and hence the number of equations would be equal to 2 as well. Thus, the number of equations is always equal to the number of endogenous variables. Now, we have this condition, normalizing condition we call it, beta 1 1 is equal to 1 and beta 2 2 is equal to 1 as well. We will be using these two conditions. These are a priori conditions. Here our A matrix is a 2 by 4 dimensional matrix, 2 rows and 4 columns, and the first row actually are the parameters of the first equation, the second row has the parameters of the second equation. In addition to this, we have the sigma matrix, which is a 2 by 2 matrix. This is the error matrix, error variance matrix. So, the diagonals are the variances of U1 and U2 respectively, and the off diagonals are the covariance between U1 and U2, and obviously the covariances has to be equal because this is a symmetric matrix. And here what we will be looking at is the conditions under which the equations are identified. We will be looking at both the equations together. Now, in this case, before we look at the different conditions, the F matrix would be a 2 by 2 matrix. Mind you, F is a G by G matrix. So, in this case, F is a 2 by 2 matrix, and it is of the form F11, F12, F21, F22. So, if we pre-multiply A by F, then we get this 2 by 4 dimensional matrix with this as the elements. So, little cumbrous, but these are the elements, and we will see how this simplifies. Remember, we already have two conditions. The first of the conditions is beta 1 1 is equal to 1 in A. So, these are the conditions we had on A. So, this condition of beta 1 1 equal to 1 in A translates to the same condition. So, if you have the same a priori conditions on FA, it means that the 1 1 element of FA must also be equal to 1. That is F11 beta 1 1 plus F12 beta 2 1 must be equal to 1. Similarly, the condition beta 2 2 equal to 1 in A translates to the FA condition as, this is the second row second element condition. So, F21 beta 1 2 plus F22 beta 2 2 must be equal to 1 in FA. So, these are two conditions that we have, but you can see that from this you cannot solve for F11, F12, F21, F22. Now, let us look at some restrictions. The first example that we look at is gamma 1 1 is equal to 0. So, this is a restriction on the first equation. What would you expect? There are two equations and there is one restriction. So, you would expect that the order condition is satisfied and possibly the first equation would be identified, but not the second. But let us see this. Let us see this through F. If gamma 1 1 is equal to 0, then that means that the third element in the first row is of A is 0. Equivalently, for the third element in the first row of FA must also be equal to 0. That is, F11 gamma 1 1 plus F12 gamma 2 1 must be equal to 0. But since gamma 1 1 is equal to 0, this reduces to F12 gamma 2 1 equal to 0. And since gamma 2 1 is not 0, F12 must be 0. Also, remember the condition we had from beta 1 1 equal to 1, the corresponding condition in FA was F11 beta 1 1 plus F12 beta 2 1 is equal to 1. And now, F12 is equal to 0 really means that F11 beta 1 1 is equal to 1. but beta 11 is equal to 1 means f11 is equal to 1. But even if you have the second condition of beta 22 equal to 1, translating to f21 beta 12 plus f22 beta 22 equal to 1 in the FA matrix, we cannot solve for f21 and f22. So finally what happens is our f turns out to be f11 equal to 0, f11 is equal to 1, f12 equal to 0, and f21 and f22 as before. That is, the first equation is identified but not the second, exactly what we had been expecting. Let us look at a second example. In this case we have gamma 11 equal to 0 and also gamma 22 equal to 0. So that this x2 in the second equation is absent along with the x1 in the first equation. Now if you just look at the conditions of the first equation as before, we have seen that this translates to f11 turning out to be 1 and f12 turning out to be 0. Look at the condition of the second equation. We have gamma 22 equal to 0, that is the fourth element in the second row in the A matrix is 0, which means the fourth element in the second row of the FA matrix must also be 0, which is f21 gamma 21 plus f22 gamma 22 is equal to 0. But then since gamma 22 is 0, f21 gamma 21 must be equal to 0, but gamma 21 is not 0 and hence f21 is 0. Now use the condition that beta 22 is equal to 1 in A. This translates to f21 beta 12 plus f22 beta 22 equal to 1 in FA. And since f21 is 0, so f22 plus beta 22 must be equal to 1, and beta 22 being equal to 1, f22 is also 1. So putting all this together, we have F is equal to identity matrix of dimension 2, and hence we can say that both the equations are identified. Now let us look at a third type of restriction. Remember, the first two types that we looked at right now are, as before, exclusion type of restriction. But this new technique works also for some other type of restriction, and let us look at what is referred to as a cross equation restriction. In this case, we have as before gamma 11 equal to 0, but not gamma 22 equal to 0. Instead, we have gamma 12 equal to gamma 21. Mind you, gamma 12 is a parameter in the first equation, whereas gamma 21 is a parameter in the second equation. So as we said before, this is a cross equation restriction. So this, in this case, two equations are involved in forming the restriction. Since gamma 11 is equal to 0, as before we have f11 is equal to 1 and f12 is equal to 0. So that is as far as the first row of F is concerned. Now let us look at the second condition, gamma 12 is equal to gamma 21, which really means that the last element, that is the fourth element in the first row, is equal to the third element in the second row of A, would really mean the same for the FA matrix. This means f11 gamma 12 plus f12 gamma 22 is equal to f21 gamma 11 plus f22 gamma 21. But then we have f11 is equal to 1, so we put that, and that reduces it to gamma 12 is equal to f22 into gamma 21, because the other condition that we have here is we already have f12 is equal to 0. Now also gamma 11 is equal to 0. So all these put together gives us gamma 12 equal to f22 gamma 21, and from this we find that f22 is equal to 1. Then what we have is f21 beta 1 2 plus f22 beta 2 2 is equal to 1. That is from the condition of beta 2 2 being equal to 1. And if we use f22 equal to 1 in this condition, we see that f21 becomes equal to 0. So, in this case also we see that the F matrix is I2, that is identity matrix of dimension 2, and both the equations are identified. So, in this case we see that cross equation restrictions also help us to identify the equations. It is not necessary that the restriction should be restricted to a single equation only. The parameters across the equations can be used to identify the equations. Finally, we will look at another type of restrictions, which is the variance restriction. So, as before, we have gamma 1 1 equal to 0, and in this case we have sigma 1 2 equal to sigma 2 1 equal to 0. That is, the covariance between E1 and E2 is 0. And let us see how this works. Let us simplify this first, because this would be a little tedious to look at otherwise. So, if you look at gamma 1 1 equal to 0, it as before translates to the fact that f11 is equal to 1 and f12 is equal to 0. That is, f is of the form 1 0 f21 f22. Now, let us come to the second restriction. For the second restriction on sigma, we have the sigma matrix which has the off diagonal elements equal to 0. So, this should be the same for the f sigma f prime matrix as well. So, first let us get f sigma f prime. This comes out in the as a 2 by 2 matrix of the form sigma 1 1 is the first element, sigma 1 2 is the second element in the first row. The second row has f21 sigma 1 1 plus f22 sigma 2 1 as the first element, and a fourth term element as the final element, the fourth element of the second element of the second row. Now, if you look at this, and if you look at the condition that the covariance is 0 in sigma, then this condition translates to the second row first element being 0 as well in the f sigma f prime matrix. So, this means f21 sigma 1 1 plus f22 sigma 2 1 is equal to 0. And since sigma 2 1 is 0, if we put that, this means f21 sigma 1 1 is equal to 0, and sigma 1 1 being non-zero, f21 is equal to 0. Also, if we look at the condition of beta 2 2 is equal to 1, then we have f21 beta 1 2 plus f22 beta 2 2 equal to 1 in the FA matrix, and this translates to f22 beta 2 2 equal to 1, because f21 is equal to 0, and since beta 2 2 equal to 1, f22 becomes equal to 1, and F matrix becomes 1 0 0 1, that is, both the equations are identified. So, we can see that even if we have restrictions on the variances or covariance matrix, then also we can identify the equations. So, it need not be the restrictions only on the equation parameters, it could be the variance covariance matrix type of restrictions that allows us to identify the equations. So, what we saw is, in some cases, particularly when we are looking at cross equation restrictions and variance type of restrictions, the rank on the order conditions do not work, because it would be difficult to formulate those two conditions. Instead, what we can look at is, we can look at this F matrix and look at the type of admissible matrix that we can have. So, a particular diagonal formatted admissible matrix allows us to identify the equations.